call to order the meeting of the Green Bay Traffic Bicycle Pedestrian Commission meeting for Monday, January 21st, 2019. Under item B, approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda of the Monday, January 21st, 2019 Traffic Bicycle Pedestrian Commission meeting agenda. Do we hear a motion made and second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, are we ready to move on then?
Well, your vote should come up now. Right?
Offer approval of the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go ahead and do a vote on them.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
I got it.
Okay.
We can do that. Well, we'll do the voting for you on these standard items.
Okay, we're good to go?
Yep.
See approval of minutes, approval of November 19th, 2018 Traffic Bicycle Pedestrian Commission meeting minutes. Motion to approve, or do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. D, regular business. Consideration with possible action on the report by the police department of the 2018 fourth quarter serious injury and fatality crashes.
I handed out the paper version. I went with school tonight. There were 2 traffic fatalities in the fourth quarter in the city of Green Bay. The first occurred on Thursday, October 4th at 7:31 p.m. Four-door Jeep Wrangler was traveling westbound on Manitowoc Road when a pedestrian that was walking the roadway was struck by the Jeep. Driver of the Jeep, who was also the only occupant, was a 40-year-old Green Bay resident. She reported not being able to see the pedestrian until just prior to the crash. The pedestrian was a 36-year-old Green Bay resident. She was transported to one of the nearby hospitals. She was pronounced deceased at 8:02 p.m. There were witness statements that pointed out that they believe the area was not lit very well, and the pedestrian was walking traffic as a potential contributing factor to the crash. And then the second for the fourth quarter occurred on Monday, December 24th at 2:21 a.m. A Dodge Neon traveling eastbound on Humboldt Road left the roadway, struck a tree near Laverne Drive. The vehicle became engulfed in flames, and the driver, who was also the lone occupant, was ejected from the vehicle when it impacted the tree. The male was pronounced deceased at the scene. Witnesses did hear the crash, but there were no actual eyewitnesses to the crash.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What was the mitigating factors on the second one?
It is believed at this point that potentially speed and or alcohol would be factors contributing, although because it was a lone vehicle crash, a full recon wasn't done, which is typical for fatalities when there's only one vehicle or one driver involved. And based on the witnesses reporting hearing the crash, the volume of the crash, I think a reasonable assumption would be that speed was potentially a factor.
Any other questions, Brad?
I just have one thing to add. On the first crash, the statement about being poorly lit, I did look into the existing street lighting. There is existing street lighting in the area. There's 2 150-watt high-pressure sodium fixtures, one at the southwest corner of Manitowoc Brosig, and then 155 feet west from that light. And it appears that this crash appeared somewhere between those 2 lights. Our typical spacing is 300 feet for lights, so we had basically double the spacing of what is really required. So for that, I just wanted to add that in there, that at least from an engineer's perspective, that roadway was properly lit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Motion to place on file.
Okay, motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 2, request by the traffic engineer to eliminate municipal code section 29-503, obstruction of crossing by trains due to a recent Wisconsin Court of Appeals ruling upholding the regulation of the Federal Railroad Safety Act.
Sure. Let's just start off with just a brief summary of what section 29.503 is. It's entitled Obstruction of Crossing by Trains, and I guess I'll just read it into the record. Number one, limited, no person having charge of any railroad car, engineer, or tender, or any railroad in the city shall permit any railroad car, engine, or tender under such person's control or charge to operate, stand, or remain in any street crossing in the city or across or in front of any bridge belonging to the city so as to obstruct the passage of traffic along such street or bridge and across such railroad track more than 5 minutes at any one time. Number two, defined, a street crossing shall be deemed blocked when kept closed to traffic by the acts of the railroad, its agents, or employee in permitting the operation of one train through or on a street crossing by the operation of gates or by the operation of more than one train over a street crossing for longer than the specified 5-minute period without allowing a 2-minute interval for the movement of traffic. If two railroads are involved, the one occupying the street crossing at the time the 5-minute limit is exceeded shall be deemed in violation of this section. Let's get into what happened in 2018. City of Wyega had a similar ordinance in place, and they had actually issued a number of citations that accumulated to a pretty high value, and they wanted to get their money for those citations, and it was contested by, I believe it was Wisconsin Central Railroad, and the Wisconsin Court of Appeals upheld the rulings of the Federal Railroad Safety Act. And in essence, what the Railroad Safety Act states is that you allow the Interstate Commerce Clause to continue, meaning that the free trade and exchange and transportation of goods shall go as unobstructed as possible. And you have to meet some particular clauses in order to overrule that. And what they did is they said that their EMS, police, and fire response times increased from 1 to 15 minutes. That wasn't convincing enough to them, to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. And then there's a second clause that there's basically 3 conditions met, but because in this case they didn't even meet the first requirement, it didn't meet the second clause either. So that's where that case law sits right now. Now I read to you earlier the our ordinance, which is very similar. Looking at the example, 1 to 15 minutes of an increase in response time. What we have is typically noted as on the west bank of the Fox River, that railroad crossing, and those are the two, Walnut Street and Dousman Street, that we received some complaints on over the years, and some regulation was obviously wanted years ago, and it was put into law, but I don't see how we would even come close to even a 15-minute delay in those extra services, because we have another bridge, i.e. the Tillman Bridge or the Mason Street Bridge, that is in close proximity. So if there were ever any sort of emergency situation where they had to get across, that's all you have to really do is go south on Broadway or go south on the east side as well, Webster, and get on to the Tillman Bridge in order to make a crossing. So that being said, I don't see how our ordinance has really any weight in the court system at this point in time. So rather than saying let's have a law in the books to not enforce, let's just get rid of it altogether.
Mr. Chairman, question.
Yes.
Okay, now this was adjudicated before one of the 4 courts of appeals. Did Wyega decide not to appeal it to the Wisconsin Supreme Court? Is it still in process, or is the appeal moot?
I did attach the, I don't know that answer, to be quite frank. I do know that I attached to the meeting agenda packet the actual article that I found this out. So this was in the publication, the Municipality, December of 2018 issue. And as of that writing, it did not state anything in this article that there was another appeal in progress.
Okay. The only reason I say that is because if it's still in the process and it's being appealed to the Wisconsin Supreme Court could always reverse the lower court's decision.
I don't have a response to that. I'm not an attorney, so.
So we would have no ordinance in the city of Green Bay. You could sit there, the law says for more than 50, or less than 15 minutes. If I understand what you're saying.
They would have no limitation.
No limitation.
But let's be frank about it. That's the way it is right now.
Yeah.
They haven't had a citation issued to them in years.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that there is something, I mean, I've had contacted them. Here's one example. When the Leo Frigo Bridge went down and we had all that traffic coming through on I-43, we got a lot of pressure from the public and the alders relative to the delay time. Yeah, we knew there was enough delay time just with the signals and everything, taking all that I-43 traffic into our downtown. Add in a train or boat, and it just added to that delay. So at that time, I had contacted the rail company about seeing if they could do anything to speed it up, change their habits, and they said, well, we'll see what we can do. But they basically, they know the Interstate Commerce Clause, and you know, if you understand the hierarchy of transportation networks, roadways is subservient to rail and water. So, to be quite frank, there's really not much we can do.
So we're just going to be at the mercy of the railroad, is what you're saying?
As we have.
Yeah, nothing new. We've all been stranded at crossings longer than we'd like, so.
Sometimes we've been stranded by railroads and ships. That's happened to me twice.
And I guess to your point, Dan, too, that let's presume that this goes to a higher court and gets challenged and overturned. There's nothing that says that we can't come back and reinstate some sort of a similar obstruction ordinance and put it in place, and maybe make it even smarter than this one. I mean, as you read it, you can tell it was written probably a long time ago. And the 5-minute rule, I can tell you, just by looking at the obstruction reports that I've seen over the years, 5 minutes it gets violated quite often.
Sure.
So the reality of 5 minutes, I would look at the report and issue citations for half the report of, you know, say 30 crossings in a week. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't, even the one that we have on the books, if it were enforceable, is not real practical.
Okay, so we need to vote to rescind that ordinance, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Oh, okay, motion approved. 3, remove the no parking during school hours zone on the west side of Irwin Avenue from Cass Street to a point 200 feet north of Cass Street. Excuse me.
We could probably take 3 and 4 together.
Okay,
They have the same recommendation, if you want to read number 4 in.
termination, all right. Can we read it in then?
Yeah.
Okay. Item 4, remove the 2-hour parking 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday zone on the west side of North Oakland Avenue from a point of 58 feet north of Shawano Avenue to a point 130 feet south of Hubbard Street.
Both zones have fielded no complaints. They were supported by staff at the time that they came through. The first one happened, the only reason that that zone has been removed is that the school moved, so it was no longer necessary. And for item 4, that had to do with the medical clinic. Well, I don't want to say medical clinic. What am I thinking of? College is, what was it?
It's a business.
Yeah, it's a business that basically renovated that property on that northwest corner of Oakland and Shawano, and they just needed some additional street parking. So Yeah, I've heard nothing from the alderman, I've heard nothing from any of the neighbors calling, complaining that there's these cars parked on the street. There used to be a 2-hour zone there, so pretty quiet. So I'd make a recommendation to move both the ordinance.
Okay, motion, I hear a
So
motion.
moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Just out of curiosity, we don't have any more items, Dave, but the hot item from December in regards, or from November in regards to the school crossing, is that
Unresolved yet?
unresolved yet? So
Yeah,
coming at a later date?
yeah, it'll be coming eventually, yes.
Okay, all right. Item F, next meeting, Monday, February 11th, 2019 at 5:30 in room 203, which is Dave know before in the council chambers.
Right.
Does anybody know that they won't be able to, I think Craig said you're a
I'll be
no-go?
in San Antonio.
Okay,
And
Chuck can be out. So Ray will be here, as far as you know, and Dan,
I'll be there.
Bridget. So we should have a quorum then, so we should be good. If somebody's not gonna, if you know, not gonna be able to make it, give Dave and I a heads up if you would, please.
Yep.
Sure we got enough for a quorum, so. Move on to item G, adjournment. Do you entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.